My name is Sura Dupart. I'm an artist, sculptor, I'm a musician, and a father of 9 children. And I've been married to my wife for almost 60 years. I was born in Chicago in the county hospital. And from there, I was raised on 46 and Langley, 4616 Langley. First time I started walking and started seeing things, I went to 47th Street and started seeing all these magnificent people that strolled up and down 47th Street every day. I got older and became school age, went to Forestville Grammar School, which was on 45th and St. Lawrence, between St. Lawrence, Vincennes, and Champlain. Then after grammar school, I went to Dunbar High School, which was in the same area. Like we would walk out of Forestville Grammar School and right into Dunbar High School. So that was interesting. They had a big playground. We had, good times up in there. Seemed like it would take a lot of time to get from 45th to 46 in Langley when you're walking and you're 6 or 7 years old, because you had all kinds of things you were looking at, different houses, different people. So my main impression of that particular area was 47th Street. I used to go to as I got older, I got 10, 11, I used to go to the theaters, and we went to the Apollo. That was the cheaper one to get into. You see a movie. And then we would go to the Met. That's a little bit more expensive. That was on King Drive, right off of 47th Street. And then the Regal Theater. We would go there and see stage shows. We'd see Duke Ellington, Stevie Wonder when he came in town. All the great Miles Davis, all the great players that came along during that period of time. And we'd go in there, we would pay a small amount of money, and you would see a movie and a cartoon as well. So it was full. When you go to the show, it was full. But on 47th Street, before you got to the show, it was a store named South Center. And between South Center and another store that was on a corner of 47 and King Drive, there was a little dime store that you go in there. You could buy popcorn and candy and stuff like that, and then walk through there, end up on our King Drive, and go right into the Regal Theater. So it was people like on 47th Street when I grew up. First people I started noticing was a man called Chicken George. And he would walk down this 47th Street and have a chicken on his head, on his hat. Had a big old hat, put this chicken on his head, and then he would holler out, "No dime, no show, no dime, no show." So some people would give him a dime, some people would give more than one person. So he would put the chicken on the sidewalk and draw a straight line with his finger, and the chicken would walk down the line, and that was the show. But it was amazing just to, today in comparisons, you don't see anybody like that walking down the street with a chicken on his head. As a matter of fact, I did a pen and ink drawing of a man with a chicken. And it represents that particular time in my life living in Bronzeville on 47th Street. And when I guess I had to be about 14, 15 before you start really moving around, like going to 51st Street or going to 55th Street or going to 43rd and 39th Street, where it was different neighborhoods, but we were all confined in Bronzeville, but we had our own territory. Things were more territorial, So that was a good growing up experience. I had 11 people in my brothers and sisters, my mother and father, so it was 13 people that lived in that house, in a frame house on 46 in Lane. We had upstairs, downstairs, great big backyard, big front yard, and a side yard. And, and we played basketball on the street, played in the alley. All our games were played in the alley or in the street. And the cars were different. 1941 Hudson. My brother had one, a 1941 Hudson. You know, the guy looked like a tank in comparisons to the automobiles that they make today. But to go on, I went to Dunbar, and I was interested in sports. So I became a basketball player. I'm 6'5", you know, and so I got all the way caught up in that. But as time went on, and I became a family man, I had to raise children and whatnot, so I went back to school. I went to Chicago State, and I went to Malcolm X first, and I got an associate degree in art. And then I went to Chicago State and got a bachelor's degree in art. And then I went to Governor State to try to get a master's degree in art. But, economics was tough. So I had to, continue on working so I could raise my family. So I gave that up. So and then when I was about 22, 23, I really became interested in art and music simultaneously. And for the first time I did some artwork, I took a piece of canvas and some color, and I went over by the lakefront on 31st, because at that time I was staying on 33rd and Calumet. So I walked over there and I tried to paint the sunrise. So that was one of my first experiences with painting. And I think I did it in oil paint. In 1941, I was born. So from 41 to 49, my father was living, and he died when I was 8 years old. So I went to high school in 1954, something like 55. And then, I graduated in 59. About 22 or 23 when I did the first painting. But I was influenced by going to the movies, the shows, and seeing artisans. And I didn't pay attention to all the artwork that was available, and seeing that people's styles changed, and their clothing, how they walked down 47th Street. They had, the brothers would have straw hats, and everybody was showered with ties and suits on. That affected me artistically too, because later on I painted a picture of my father and my brother and I with suits and ties and hats on in the 50s. So all those things kind of like set a pace for me in art. But I think I was impressed by the billboards and then all the advertisements that they had, the colors that people wore during that period of time, the attitudes that I seen at that time affected me today in terms of how I paint, because subconsciously some things come up out of me that I don't recognize until later on after it's finished. I say, golly, that's a reflection of my time on 47th Street. I seen that particular guy, I seen that woman during that time. So all those things play in the preparation of being an artist. I think everything that you're exposed to in life, the architecture of things that were going on, the make of the cars, how they were built during that particular time, the way all the trees were included in our area. And, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. And I really learned and seen a lot that subconsciously just followed me in my life all the way to the day, because I still work off of some of those experiences. When I was in grammar school, I had a teacher, and she was extremely interested in me having artistic abilities. And she was trying to get me to get into the Art Institute, some kind of program they had for young children in that particular area. But I had some strange thoughts about art, and I didn't take advantage of that. But subconsciously, all those things impressed me and made me become who I am today. Inspiration was all around me, and I was inspired by all kinds of things that are relative to what I do today. I think, sound. Being a musician, you're working with sound and effects. Today, currently, I got a band called the Side Pocket Experience, and we deal with healing music. Some music is secular. Secular music is kind of and that's healing too. It makes you pop your finger, and they shaking their booties and carrying on like that out here today. But you got healing music that's internal, and it sounds that effect that you might have. When you look in the sky and you see 100 birds fly over your head, and you hear the sounds that they make in their movement, or they saying sounds together. They probably communicating or talking to each other. Anyway, those things affect what I try to present today, are the just general sounds that are basically not trying to force you to do something with your body, but you internalize and trying to meditate, and you have good thoughts. You try to project good thoughts. But that's my plight in being a musician. But let me say something else about music, because I was affected by these. I used to be, maybe I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I seen a couple of guys who'd come around the house and be up on 47. I'd be in front of 46 in Langley, and the guy had a bass he made out of a tub, a wash tub, and a 2x4 with one string, not a wire that came down one, and he would pluck it like a bass, boo-doo, and then they had a harmonica player, and he was a singer too. So that was part of our entertainment. Every week we would see these kind of cats that come around, and they perform. They had the same concept like the Chicken Man, no dime, no show. So you contribute to them, and they would, that would be their reward, and they would come back repeatedly and do that. But that was impressive musically. And then I look at that back then and look at how it's changed and what kind of instruments these cats got today, and and the phenomenal music that's being played today. Oh man, it's a total change. So the question is, to me, you're asking me that how was I inspired by whatever artisans I came in contact with, or the colors and vibrations that I experienced when I was younger. And, like 47th Street was lit up with colors and people styling, that really impressed me, because people had certain walks, and certain rhythms to how they performed on the street, just coming out. 47th Street was like their theater, and they performed, coming back and forth. We had policy guys running around there selling policy. We had, drug addicts. We had alcoholics. But everybody had their own particular thing. And at that particular time, I like to bring up the fact that the community was more conscious of each other. We would have fights and stuff like that, but it wasn't no killing like it is today. People loved each other. I was out there in the street playing baseball. I was about 10 years old, and I hit a baseball, a 16-inch baseball, softball, hit it, and it broke a car window. The neighbors were so tight that before I got home, my mother and father knew I broke this one. I said, "Godly, I came home So I couldn't deny the fact, but, the people would watch us. We would leave our doors open. And now that's really something. You leave your front door open. Anybody can come in, but that was the trust that we had and the love and respect that we had in the community. So that was important in my bringing up. Okay, I experienced the Buck Billeting Parade. That was real colorful. And people had all kinds of, costumes on and things like that. So that was impressive. I'm pretty sure I did some stuff today or that represents that, and subconsciously these things come out. Now, how I studied art, I really was impressed with Van Gogh too, because we were bombarded with European art. Didn't see much black art until I became a little bit older, I think. But they wouldn't, publicize the black art, like the black artisans or art, doing 50s, 60s, 40s. It wasn't that, only the people in the community knew about artisans. So I didn't know too many artisans at that particular time because I wasn't introduced to them, but everybody was an artist in a sense because, in my family, my father, he would build all the toys for my, sisters and brothers and myself. He would he made a ship, put all the little men on it, sail ship, all the sails. He made that, That's what he showed me. Then he would make a buggy for all the little girls in our family. They would have toys and stuff like that. So it was more of a creativity that was constant because my mother played piano and my sister played piano, and that was influence too. So all those things we had every time in my life, I had a piano in my house from the time I was born until even today, I always had a piano somewhere, But those kind of things are lasting and it connects to the day, it makes you do certain things that you got going on today. Now, later on in life, I got interested in sculpturing, but even in grammar school, I made a church. In some kind of way, people were going in the church out of soap. And this teacher was so impressed with it, that's what triggered her to try to get me into the Art Institute, So that was impressive. So I was involved. I guess I was affected by my father, too, because he made everything. He made everything that we needed,
Your father was a carpenter?
Yeah, he was an excellent carpenter. He helped build Ida B. Wells projects, stuff like that. So, and then my brothers became carpenters. Two of my brothers became carpenters, and they kept on with the tradition of being a carpenter. And then prior to that, my uncles were carpenters. So I probably came from a whole line of carpentry. People that dealt with working with their hands, making things. I think that's where all the sculpture work comes from too, because. I would see things and just like, for an example, I'd look at a piece of stone and the stone would reveal to me as I started cutting into it, it would reveal to me certain things that I had to do to make that stone appreciate it being a stone. I know that's a wild thought, but like for an example, I cut a fish out. And the fish revealed some lines in it that were so embedded into the stone, it looked like, it was a part of the thing. I got it too. But all those things accumulated in my bringing up. And I think all of it pointed towards me being an artist. My sister too took me to the Art Institute periodically and showed me art. So that affected me as well. We didn't have no DuSable Museum at that particular time. Just had, what we seen on the streets and going downtown and going to the Art Institute and stuff like that. But everything was so Europeanish. I didn't see anything relative to, my black experience. Wasn't nothing there. It was all about white folks, and what they did, what they accomplished, and who they celebrated as their artisans. So we would kind of like we miseducated in that sense, whereas that we didn't have no formal information about our inheritance. Now, later on in life, I became more conscious of Africa and seeing things that, I said, golly, the art is there. And that was inspirational, because it was introduced, but during high school, grammar school, and all that I wasn't introduced to that until I got older. I didn't go to college till I was 30. I raised my family first. My first thing was painting. I tried to paint. Then I ran across a friend of mine. His name was Omar Lama. He was a master pen and ink drawer. So he influenced me, and I started doing things in pen and ink. Then later on in my 20s and stuff, I lived in a house where it was poets, philosophers, artisans, and then that brother named Omar would come by. Then we had musicians come by. So we had a community of artisans, and people were trying to be we were trying to educate ourselves. We would do a lot of research, a lot of reading. Some people would be readers, prolific readers, and they would come back and tell us stories, if you're not the reader. And so all that influenced and affected me in my 20s. That's why I got up one morning and tried to catch the sunrise and try to paint it. Because I thought at that moment I was an artist, But the painting didn't come out like that. But it was good, it was the beginning. And the same thing with music. I seen all these great musicians I experienced doing my growing up. Then I went to this place called McKee's on 63rd Street. And they had John Coltrane, Alvin Jones. I would see Max Roach, all these dynamite drummers, Tony Williams and drummers. So that affected me. And I just bought me a set of drums. And me being tall, I had to use some telephone books to put on the floor so I could put the floor tom on top of the books so it would be my size. Just being involved in that period of time and seeing all this music and the transference and transition that the music had and the effect that it had on us as young people. And I smoked a lot of herb, and I was sitting in there, be blowed and get all this impact and stuff, this music. And spiritually, it really addressed, my understanding of responsibilities and things that I could do. But the art and the music, I had to wait for it. It just didn't happen. You had to repeatedly, be involved in something that's relative to art, just like sculpturing. I got involved with some guys that were interested. They were doing stone sculpture, and wood sculpture. So I got involved with them. We created a studio, and we had it in Hammond, Indiana. We stayed there for 20 years, and the city allowed us to be on this property. It was and this big old building, it's just a warehouse. So we would, bring all this stone in here and work it out. But for 20 years we worked. At first we started in the backyard of a friend of mine's, and we do stone work there. And then later on we graduated and got these studios, and that was the transition from wood sculpturing to stone sculpturing. And we made major pieces, Made one piece that we put on 66 or 67th and Kimbark. It's right on the corner, it's a mother and child out of limestone. And those kind of influences propelled me to where I am today. But, then later on in life, I experienced from all the dust that was accumulated because we just wear a mask instead of a thing that'll protect you. But later on in life, I think scarred my lungs or some kind of way. That's what they say, So today I have a problem with breathing. So it eliminated me from doing certain works. So today I just deal with paintings and things like that.
Okay. If you had the opportunity to create a piece now in Bronzeville, what would you do?
I would possibly, depending on the space that was allowed, I would try to make a relief out of foam. Foam is a very good medium to, you can demonstrate, different images. I could show people, walking. I could show some of the things that I talked about. Chicken Man, I could show that, and other cats, playing a bass on that. I could do that, in a relief in foam. Well, I would try to demonstrate the changing in transportation and the changing in communication, because in communication we had little phone booths that was on the corner. You would have to go in there, you put a quarter in there, a dime or something, make your call. Sometimes, depending on the position that you were in, how, some people would be knocking on the door, come on, man, get out. Let me make this call, But there's a definite change from communication and transportation to now. But I would try to illustrate, demonstrate that in the sculpture piece that I would lay out, the differences between the old streetcars and the day's buses, So that would show a change. Now in the future, I don't know what's going to happen. We might be in spaceships or cars be floating on the ground, So I don't know. I know art is extremely important, and I think today, as I got older, I learned that everything is art and everything is mathematics and everything is everything, So the more we have an inclusion of everybody on the planet contributing to the well-being of us as human beings on this planet, we'd be better off instead of, for an example, you got Christmas coming up. Spiritually, it doesn't relate to Jesus Christ dying. It relates to somebody buying you a present, or you satisfying your children with a bunch of presents. That's the only, because that's what we understand Christmas as being. It has nothing to do with Jesus Christ died. It's more commercialized than it is spiritualized. So I think the more we connect ourselves with the spiritual aspect of who we are, and the fact that we're in a part of a divine order that takes us to certain places, and the Creator is always with us, is protecting fools and children and fools. And I know a lot of times in life I've been a fool, and God was right there and said, wait a minute, boy, So, because there's a lot of bad influences out here that'll take you out. But point is that we need to live better. We could live better if we much more conscious of inclusion and respect, understanding, and love for one another. Today they're over there killing somebody in another part of the world. They create a revenge factor, and they kill each other. It doesn't make any sense, And then they come up with sometimes they create a war just to eliminate some of the population. When I was coming up, they had this war in Vietnam, and then all the brothers, like I was influenced by Ali. Ali said, man, I ain't going over there. I don't know them people. They don't know me. They ain't got, you are my enemy here. The people that are oppressing me, that's my enemy. And the same thing applies today. They eliminate us from opportunities and things like that. I think It's a program called STEM. I think that's extremely important. You know, it's dealing with science, technology, you know, engineering, mathematics, you know, those things, and space. And, you know, if we can look at space and try to conceptualize certain things, collectively we'll come up with dynamite ideas on how to deal with outside of this earth. Like one guy asked me a long time ago, said, man, if you had a chance to get in space, would you take it? And I replied, I wasn't being sarcastic. I just said, but I'm in space already. This planet is doing 1,700 miles an hour as we speak. And gravitation is keeping us, you know, adhered to the planet, but we're in space, you know. So that's all I got. That's all I got to say.